Hi, I'm Beth from Sew Country, and today's sewing marathon is most definitely 100% the one I'm most excited about so far. Today we are paying tribute to the person who started the sewing marathons and had the original idea and plan for this concept, the Victoria Wristlet from Mormino. Mormino began the sewing marathons because she started a tradition of sewing a necessary clutch wallet on New Year's Eve. Her and her friends got together and decided they would just do a sewing marathon and have everyone come together sewing the same pattern one after another to kind of get excited about the new year but still have fun and be motivational. These sewing marathons are a way for us to connect, inspire each other, and for us to see a pattern and know there are so many different interpretations to it. Lauren has been someone in the sewing community that has educated us, inspired us, and gave us amazing, beautiful materials to work with. So today's sewing marathon is all about us sewing up the Victoria Wristlet in a variety of different prints, materials, fabrics, whatever, and just a way for us to have a sense of community to inspire each other. So let's go ahead and get ready to sew the Victoria Wristlet from Mormino, but first let me show you a few features on it. We have this adorable V slip pocket for Victoria, which is Lauren's middle name. We have a zipper pocket on the back, a main zipper on top, zipper pocket inside, and credit card slots. This pattern comes together quick. It's super fun. I know you'll find many ways to use it too, and I hope to see your Victoria Wristlet. So let's go ahead and get started making our very own Victoria Wristlet. Let's go ahead and go through everything you'll need to complete the wristlet, and then I'll talk about all the prep work that I've already done. The first thing I want to let you know is that I'm using material from Mormino's website. I'm using one of her water resistant types of fabrics, and so these are a heavy enough weight that I do not need to use any interfacing, so I'm not interfacing anything. The first thing I need is I need 4 main pieces. This is going to be 2 exterior pieces and 2 lining pieces. Mine are all going to look the same, but you can use different ones if you want to, but this will be your front and the back of the wristlet and your inside of the wristlet. On this wristlet, we're going to have that unique V-shaped pocket on the front. So to make that pocket, we're going to need an overlay cut out of vinyl. Again, this vinyl is from Lauren's website. And we're also going to need an exterior pocket piece and a lining pocket piece. If you're using cotton woven, go ahead and interface yours with a medium weight interfacing. I'm going to be putting 2 pockets on my wristlet. I'm going to be putting one on the inside and I'm going to be putting one on the back panel. So I have 4 zipper pocket lining pieces cut out. The only fabric that's not Lauren's is this credit card slot. I didn't want to use anything too heavy to make my credit card slots, so I just wanted a piece of cotton woven. I'm leaving this uninterfaced at the moment, and I have it cut according to the pattern measurements. I need 1 wristlet strap, 1 D-ring connector. I need 2 zipper tabs to go onto my exterior zipper. I'm also going to use 3 pieces of number 5 zipper tape. I already have the pulls attached on all of these, and they are cut according to the measurements given in the pattern. And I will need a D-ring connector, some magnetic snaps, and a swivel hook. So those are all the pieces we need to make this wristlet. So let me talk just a little bit about some of the prep work I've already done. For the wristlet strap and my zipper tabs, I did the 4-way fold, where you're folding it just like a piece of double fold tape. You draw a line down the middle. I will show you. I didn't draw a line, but I will show you the basic concept of it. You take this piece, you fold it in half to that crease line in the half. You fold both of your raw edges, and then you fold them in half again, and that has all the raw edges inside. I'm making my wristlet strap a 1-inch strap. I just wanted a little bit bigger of a strap, but you could definitely make yours a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch, depending on your preference and whatever hardware you have in your house. For the zipper tabs, I'm doing the same thing, just completely encasing those raw edges, and then I simply slid each end of the exterior zipper tape inside that crease. For the D-ring connector, we do it just a little bit differently. We don't do that last fold. So we fold the raw edges both to the middle, and then we stop there. We don't make the extra fold. And that's just going to save us a little bit of bulk, because after we top stitch this, we fold it in half again, and then we'll sew it inside our wristlet. So that'll just help it to lay a little bit better and not be a big bump on the outside of our wristlet. That's the prep work I've already done. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pattern pieces and I am going to do a couple of marks. For the interior pockets, I am going to take one piece and draw the box from the pattern piece given. I'm just going to trace it on there. I'm going to do one of these for the interior pocket, and then I'm going to go ahead and trace that box onto one for the exterior back zipper pocket. I'm also going to take the pieces for that front V-shaped pocket, and I'm going to use the pattern piece to make my marks to install my magnetic snaps. I'm going to do this one, the V-shaped. It's going to be done on the lining piece. For my main panel piece, I'm going to use the pattern piece and make those same marks, but on the front exterior main panel piece. So whichever one you want to be your main front, that's where you make those magnetic snaps, and you just transfer them directly over from your pattern piece. So the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to install my magnetic snaps. I'm going to sew on the zipper tabs to the exterior only. That's the only zipper that needs the tabs. I'm going to sew down the long edges of the D-ring connector, and I'm going to sew down the long edges of my wristlet snap. For my magnetic snaps, it's going to be pretty simple. I'll keep it kind of sped up so that you're not having to sit through it, since most people do already know how to install the magnetic snaps and you're not bored. But the way I do it is I first just transfer the dots from the pattern piece. Then I take my washer and I put it directly on that dot. And then I transfer those two lines. Those two slits, that is where I'm going to use my seam ripper and make a small slit down where I marked. And you want to do this really small. You can always go back and make it bigger if you want, but don't go too big in the beginning. Once you make your slots, you're just going to fit in your magnetic snap. Now you're going to make sure that you install, where there's two on this lining front pocket, you're going to make sure you install the same ones. So if you're going to do females or males on this piece, make sure you do them both the same, just for ease so you don't mess up. So I'm going to put my, let's see, I'm going to do my males on this piece. So I go to the front and I simply push those prongs through the slits I made, and I put my washer on there. You can add interfacing, you can add a layer of Decaville light, you can add whatever you want for security on this piece. Once you get that magnetic snap the way you want it and interface the way you want to have it, you're just going to simply push your prongs open. I choose to push mine outward, but everybody's different. Some people want theirs to go inward, some go outward. You can even push it on the table if you need a little extra support on that. So that's how you install the magnetic snap. I'm going to do that for the other ones, and I'll start sewing up these first initial pieces so we can get started making the wristlet. I added the zipper tabs to the exterior zipper. I went ahead and trimmed down those tabs. I'm going to set this piece aside. I'm not using it right now. I sewed down both long edges of the wristlet strap. I'm going to set this aside. I'm keeping the D-ring tab out because I will be using it shortly. And I'm going to go ahead and keep out the main with the magnets added and the pocket with the magnets added. I'm going to keep those two pieces out. I'm also going to pull out the overlay and the exterior piece for the overlay. So what we'll do now is we'll take this vinyl overlay, and this should be a raw edge. You can make it a different way, but it would be just a little trickier. So if you can use a vinyl or a cork or something that won't fray, that would be best for this. You're going to match it up directly at the top. So those two top edges are going to match up exactly. Put a clip or two in place if you need to. My material's kind of grabby, so it's really grabbing each other, but I'll go ahead and add a clip on the side just so it doesn't shift anymore. I'm going to add the clip just a little bit in there because it does tend to leave an indentation if I leave it on too long. So this is what the front of the pocket should look like, exterior and your overlay. What you're going to do now is you're going to baste down this side, top stitch along the bottom, and then baste up this side as well. That will attach this, then we'll add the lining piece to this after we do this stitching. Okay, now that I have that overlay attached to the exterior, I'm going to pull out the lining piece with the snaps and I'm going to place them right sides together. We'll match up those top edges again, and this time I'm going to sew across the top, not the bottom. And I'm just using the seam allowance given in the pattern. So we're just going to sew from one edge to the other. Make sure you back stitch, of course. Then we're going to flip this and then we'll top stitch it. So now that I have those two pieces joined, I'm just going to take my time. If you want, you can do a clip here to kind of help the spreading of these two materials. So I'm just doing a small snip at those pivot points just to kind of help things spread and lay flat. But I always start at the corner there and roll those down first, and then I'll get everything else to poke through. So I'm going to put a clip right there in the corner first. I'm going to try to keep it within the seam allowance so it doesn't leave the indentation marks on my vinyl. And then I'm going to use my fingers just to slowly poke through each of those pivot points. And then come over to the other side and clip that down the exact same way. And I might use my stiletto on that just to kind of push it out a little bit more. If you want to trim down the seams, especially at those points, you can. And I'm just rolling that lining back so I don't see it when I'm top stitching. I'm going to go ahead and put a couple clips at the bottom just to keep that part out of the way, so just along that raw edge there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch around the top, then I'm just going to go ahead and baste around the sides and the bottoms just to get this to be one complete unit. When I'm top stitching here at the top, I like to lengthen my stitch length. I like to go up to about 4 personally, and that'll just help it to look a little bit neater since I'm going over vinyl and a little bit of extra layers. While I'm sewing, I'm going to try to make sure that that lining stays tucked in. I do not like to see it from the exterior, but it's okay if you do. now I have my front pocket ready to go. I'm going to take out that front exterior main piece. Simply going to snap those magnets into place. Everything should line up perfectly. So now I'm going to baste the sides and the bottom of these two pieces so they're all one unit. Pull out our D-ring connector and let's go ahead and attach it to this front. You can choose the way you want it to lay. If you want it to be on which side, I prefer mine to be on the left side. So I'm going to attach it to where the pattern says. The pattern tells you how far down to attach it. I'm going to have just a little bit of overhang and I'm going to baste that into place. So now we have the front completed. Let's go ahead and set this exterior front aside. Let's pull out one of our lining main pieces and our back main pieces. I'm going to put a zipper pocket on both of mine, so I will need both pieces. I'm going to lay down one of the pieces that I've drawn the box on. This is a lining zipper pocket piece. The pattern tells us where to place this. We're just going to be we're going to have it centered and about 1 inch down pretty much. No big deal there. You can kind of eyeball it if you want or break out a ruler. Once you have those situated the way you want them, you're going to sew directly on the box you already drawn. So you're just going to sew a rectangle. Make sure you back stitch when you start and stop and have these two pieces right sides together. Now that you have your boxes sewn on, pick up that exterior piece and just fold it in half and make a small snip in the center. Then I open it back up and then I continue to cut down the center between all the layers. I'm cutting through everything until I get about 1/2 to 1/4 of an inch away. And then I snip into each corner, but I make sure that I get as close as I can without cutting the stitches. Once you have the opening, it'll be a complete opening through all the layers. You are simply going to push this lining piece through. I like to start it by kind of folding that top down and using my fingers just to crease it flat. Then I will come and I will crease the seam open just to kind of get the fabric to be able to fold the right way. You can take this over to the iron if you want to. Then I'm going to take that top, push it through. I'm going to be using my fingers to push that seam or roll that seam so that it is completely flat. I don't want to push it so much that I see the threads, but if I pushed a little harder, I could. I want it that flat, that smooth. So I do the top first, then I do the same thing with the bottom. So before I push that down, I kind of open it up and then grab it. So I'll make sure I get that really crisp edge there. So grab, push, flip. I always save the sides for last because I come to the back side and I kind of just pull those edges and then it tends to just go exactly the way I want it to. The sides are the trickiest spot because you tend to have some bunching and gathering. If you had too much bunching and gathering, that means you just need to go in and clip a little bit more, and I definitely do. So now that I have the box clipped all the way open, I'm going to give it just a second, or you can take it over the iron to get it pressed flat so that it kind of remembers the way those seams you want them to go, and kind of has that memory. I'm going to take my zipper and I want my pull to be going to the left. That's a personal preference. What I'll do is when I take the clips off, I'm just going to slide this underneath and I'm just going to sew it that way so that the teeth stay in the middle of this opening. You can place a row of double-sided tape on the top and the bottom to kind of secure it in there to make sure it stays. Whatever you're most comfortable with, do that. Then after we have that, we're just going to sew around the perimeter of this box, and that will attach the zipper to your lining or your back, whichever one you're working on. Want to make sure that the zipper tape is spread evenly on the back. You definitely don't want to sew this too close because it could easily poke through. So just make sure you have it so that there is overhang on both sides of the opening. And then you can lengthen your stitch length if you want, but you're basically top stitching 1/8 of an inch away around the tire opening. I prefer to start a little bit down the top middle of this long side. So I don't start right here at the front. I start a little bit down, so whenever I do that last pivot, I can have time to catch up if I'm not lining it perfectly at that point to meet my initial row of stitching. I have this part completed. My zipper tape and the pull is both from So Majestic. Amber is the owner of that business, and she's actually doing one of these tutorials too. Hers is a couple hours after mine. I think starts at 8. So definitely watch hers too and see if she's using any of her zipper tape. I love all of them. They're just gorgeous. So now that we have this completed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to pull out another one of my lining pocket pieces, and I'm simply going to lay it right sides together directly on top of the other one. I'm going to put a few clips in place just to clip this, just to have this secured. And then I'm going to sew around all 4 sides using the seam allowance given in the pattern, and that will completely close off this pocket. So now that I have the zipper pocket completed, I'm just going to trim off some of the overhang on the zipper tape to get it out of the way. So I have this one completely finished. I'm going to go ahead and sew my second one off camera. I have both of my zipper pockets completed. I'm going to set them aside, and now I'm going to work on my credit card slots. I love making credit card slots. I don't know why. I just think they're so much fun to make. So first thing is that I have this piece of cotton woven. It is uninterfaced, nothing on it. Then we start from the bottom. So if your print's directional, make sure that you know that you are making these measurements from the bottom portion of your credit card slot piece. The pattern tells us we're going to make a series of lines. She goes ahead and labels them A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way down to G. G is the last one you make. With these, you'll use your ruler to measure from the bottom of your fabric to your first line, which is A. Then from A, you're going to measure down, so the measurement will be given from the A line to the B line, from the B line to the C line, not from the bottom to each line, just so you know that. So at my A line, we're going to fold those wrong sides together. What I do to do that is I don't take this over to the iron. I'm just going to pinch everything here at my sewing table. Once I get it all made, then I take it over to the iron, then I press it flat, and then I add my interfacing. So I put a roller or a piece of paper, whatever you want, and I use that to flip at that line to make that crease mark. I make sure that my sides match up, and then I just finger press these. I'm going to go ahead and put a clip in place on each side. Move that clip kind of higher up. And then I open it back up again. Now your B-line, we're folding these accordion style, so your B-line will be right sides together. So again, I just pinch right on that line for my B, and I finger press it. And I'm going to put a clip or two there. And I'm going to put 2 clips, one on each side there. I'm going to go back. C is going to be wrong sides together. So again, I'm going to pull out my ruler or a piece of paper, put it directly on that line, and use that to get the marks or to have the correct placement for that finger press. I'm going to make sure that my sides aren't getting out of whack. They're not being uneven. They're staying together. Finger press there. And I'm going to go ahead and clip. And you can see we're getting little credit card slots already starting to kind of develop, or you can start seeing them happen. I'm going to use that clip right there to kind of push those two together so it's holding both of those in place. I'm going to open this up again. And so B was right sides together. D is going to be wrong sides together. I'm going to keep doing this all the way down until I get all of these credit card slots made. Whenever I flip this down, I can kind of look, and that's what I'm doing this whole time. And one reason why I'm not going to the iron first is I can kind of look and make sure everything looks neat on the sides. Everything seems evenly spaced. It's adding up perfectly together. Now we're down to our last slot, which is G. So we've done everything else. What I'm going to do with G is I'm going to fold it at that line. So I'm going to flip it over here so I can see, put my ruler on that line to make sure it creases it perfectly. And you're going to fold it right sides together. And it should basically match up to your top edge when you fold it. Mine's just a slight bit off, so I'm going to go ahead and move it. Mine's like 1/8 of an inch off, and it's probably just a measuring folding thing for me. And so now I'm going to pull it up so that it does match that top raw edge. So let me look and let me show you what it is. So here is your G line. Here is the actual top of your credit card slots. Here's the bottom of your credit card slots. You want those to be matched up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to sew these 3 edges, but we have to leave an opening here so that we can flip this right sides out so our credit card slots do not have any raw edges and it's completely finished. So I'm going to start sewing here. I'm going to back stitch, go down, pivot, go over a little bit, back stitch here, break my stitches, start sewing again here, back stitch, pivot, up, back stitch again. And then I can turn this through this opening here and have my perfect little credit card slots. So now at this point, before I do that sewing, I'm going to go over and I'm going to add the interfacing on these folds here, press everything flat so that way everything's secure, neat, pressed into place and ready for me to sew. So that way after I have it ironed, interface everything, when I turn it, I won't be losing my pleats or my folds. I have my credit card slots pressed, interfaced, folded, ready to go. I do want to mention that if you were wanting to top stitch, you would do that before you added your interfacing. I typically do not top stitch my credit card slots just because I batch sew and it seems to save a little bit of time, and I just don't do it. But anyway, if you wanted to do that, you would do it before you added your interfacing, after you made all your pleats though. I'm going to go ahead and sew around just like I had said, and then we will turn these and close up the opening hole and then add them to the other lining piece. We'll trim these corners just a little bit. I am not going to trim anywhere near the opening because I want to use that extra to be able to tuck in to get a nice clean closure on that opening. Slowly turn everything out so you don't mess all your stuff up. I use my stiletto to get all these corners nice and sharp. I'm going to do it gently though because this is a cotton woven that's uninterfaced in those corners, and I definitely don't want to poke through or rip my stitches. I'm going to pull here on my sides of the opening to kind of help them close the right way. I want to take time here. I always like this to be as neat as possible. I hate to see it kind of wonky looking. They look gorgeous, just gorgeous. So what I'm going to do is I am going to top stitch that final top part just so it lays flat there, but otherwise I'm not going to do anything else, and then I'm going to attach it to the lining. I'm going to pull out one of the lining pieces. It's probably the only one, yeah, it's the only one I have left without anything attached to it. And so let me see how far we put this down. Okay, the pattern tells us how far we're going to place this. The opening is, of course, your bottom, so you can get in your card slots. I want to be able to use this as a slip pocket, so before I close this, I'm going to top stitch a line down the middle to separate these. If I went back and forth on this because I typically use my wristlets or my credit card slots for cash. I don't have a lot of credit cards, but most people do have credit cards, so in case I decide to give this as a gift, I'm going to top stitch down the center here. So these are individual card slots. But if you're someone like me and uses cash and coupons more, you could consider leaving these open for that purpose, which is what I typically do if I'm making one for me. But for this one, I don't know exactly who it's going to. So I'm going to top stitch down that center now. And now I'm going to take this and place, I'm going to center it along the sides, and then the top, the pattern tells you how far down you want to measure to place this. So I'm going to make that measurement, and then I'm going to sew, or top stitch you should say, from this side down here, pivot, go across here, that'll close up your opening there, pivot, go back up again. Make sure you back stitch really well, because since this will be used as a slip pocket, we want to make sure that there's a lot that'll be getting stressed because you'll be putting things in and out of there. So I'm going to do that now. Oh my gosh, I'm loving how that's looking. So cute. So let's look at what we have. We have our lining main panel with the credit card slots attached. We have a lining main panel with a zipper pocket attached. We have a back panel, zipper pocket. We have the front panel with a slip pocket, magnetic snaps, and our D-ring. We still have the exterior zipper to attach, and we have the wristlet. I'm going to go ahead and Put on my swivel hook now. My material is a non-fraying material, so I don't have to worry too much about how I am finishing this up. If yours is, definitely take precautions with that. I'm simply going to fold over. Which edge do I want to fold over? I think I want this edge. I like it better. So I'm going to put my swivel hook on. I'm going to butt this right up against there. Flip it down. That's the way I'm going to do mine. You could always add a pretty piece of vinyl to hide that edge if you don't like it, or you could do it whatever your preferred method is to make a wristlet strap. I'm just going to sew this 2 separate lines of stitching, but you could add a rivet also. So now it's time to put everything together so we can finish our bag. I'll set my wristlet aside. I'm going to pull out my front exterior and my zipper and one of my lining pieces. I'm trying to see which one. I think I want this one for the lining. This looks a little bit better, so I'll leave that one for the back. So what I'll do is I will take that zipper, and I want my zipper to be closing to the left, so I'm going to have it orientated like this and just flip it down. And I'm going to center it so that the zipper tabs will not be in my seam allowance. Make sure you have that space on both sides. If you don't have that space, I would consider checking your measurements, recutting, or something like that, because you definitely want to keep that extra bulk outside of your seam allowance. I'm going to clip the zipper edge here to the top, and then I'm going to go ahead and make just your traditional zipper sandwich and sew this up. Lots of times I baste first. If you want to, you can baste first. With this one, it's kind of small, not a lot of bulk at the top, so I feel fairly comfortable that I won't have too much shifting. So I'm just going to add that lining piece, so it'll be right sides together with the exterior with the zipper sandwiched in between. I'm going to clip all 3 of those raw edges together, the exterior main, the lining main, and the zipper tape. I'm going to sew this with the seam allowance given in the pattern from one side to the other, making sure I back stitch at the start and the stop. I have those 3 sewn together. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip them wrong sides together, and I'm going to go ahead and clip the lining and the exterior wrong sides together. Now I'm going to top stitch through both layers, but the pattern does tell us we have the choice of just top stitching through the lining only, so you can kind of choose. But for me, I'm going to go through all the layers. I'm going to clip some here at the bottom. And have everything secured. Now for my top stitching, I'm only going to top stitch from tab to tab. I'm not going to go from edge to edge. I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from that folded edge that we just sewed. Look how pretty. It looks gorgeous. I love it. I love pink though. I'm very much a pink girly girl. Okay, so now we're going to add the back the same way. So this is my back exterior main. Yours may not have a zipper pocket. I'm going to take it and I'm going to place it right sides down, matching up that top raw edge of the zipper, making sure that my sides match up with the exterior front. Let's go ahead and add some clips. Go ahead and check to make sure that the sides match up on the other side as well. I'm going to flip that over, and I'm going to take this lining piece, making sure I have it orientated the right way, and I'm going to flip it right sides together with this other lining piece, my other lining main. I'm going to go ahead like I did before and clip these together. If you're uncomfortable, you can baste first. You're going to be going ahead and clipping 3 things together: the exterior main, the lining main, and your zipper tape sandwiched in between. We are going to sew with the seam allowance given in the pattern, starting and stopping, back stitching when we start and stop, the same as we did for the front. Now we're going to flip those two wrong sides together and we're going to top stitch again. So now I'm going to pull the front exterior main and lining to one side and the back exterior and lining to the other side. So you can see that that zipper is completely free of anything. And now I'm going to top stitch the exact same way I did the last time, from tab to tab, 1/8 of an inch away from that folded edge that we just sewed. I'm going to make sure that I'm pulling that lining to keep them separated. I didn't clip this time, so just pull to make sure that your lining doesn't creep up behind your zipper. So now we have everything completed. It's time to do the final steps. We're going to take our two exteriors, the exterior mains, and we're going to clip them right sides together. We're going to match up the bottoms and the sides, and then we'll do the same thing for our lining. If you want, you can go ahead and make sure that zipper is open. Lots of times with the number 5 zippers, they're very easy to open from either way, so it's not too big of a deal, but you can just slide that open. And I'm going to go ahead and clip everything into place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that zipper tab. I'm going to push it slightly to the exterior, and so that way I can fold those seam allowances and that bulk a little bit more to the lining, so that it'll kind of distribute the bulk a little bit better. But it's really not a big deal whichever way you do it. If you push them to the exterior or to the lining, just try to make sure you're consistent, that whichever way the seam allowance is going, it's going that way on both sides. Now when we sew this, what we'll do is we'll start sewing here at the lining. We're going to leave an opening so that we can birth the bag. So I'll back stitch here, go to the corner, and then pivot, go all the way down and around, and then come here and back stitch again, leaving that opening right there in the lining. We're going to sew with the seam allowance given in the pattern. The main things we want to be careful of when we're sewing this all together is that we're not getting our zipper tabs in the seam allowance, and that we're not hitting that D-ring. If you need to make sure your D-ring's flipped the correct way, go ahead and do that, but make sure you don't sew over it. It could cause a problem with your needle, of course. Now that I've got that sewn together, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim up my edges and my corners a little bit. I had a little bit of overhang on certain spots, and I'm just going to trim that up. I'm not too worried about the seam allowance. It's not a very large seam allowance. I don't care to trim that so much as I do just the overhang and the corners. So now it is time to reach into our wristlet from the bottom lining. If your zipper's not open big enough, move it open. And then I try to start with a corner and try to do one corner from the exterior at a time. Sometimes if it's really bulky, I have to do from the lining, but this one I feel like will come from the corner. So I just grab it and start pulling. I go slow and start pushing everything through a little at a time. So before I tuck everything inside, I'm going to go ahead and close up this lining just like you typically would do. Put your hands in the side and kind of pull, and you will get that to line up evenly. Add a few clips here, and then I'm just going to sew across this, back stitching when I start and stop about 1/8 of an inch away. I trim back thread there. Okay, let's push this inside. Tuck it in really good. Push really in your corners. Looks great. Everything's beautiful in there. Close it up. Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. Now I'm mad at myself. I did leave that too long. I hate long D-rings. I really should have had it in way more. So be careful with that. Don't do that same mistake because it's just crazy looking. Honestly, if it was okay, I'd probably just take it off and redo the whole thing, but I'm not going to. Everything other than my mistake is gorgeous. It is perfect. I love the way it looks. Such a fun sew. Definitely would be a great sew for craft shows, for gifts. It's the perfect Christmas gift. You could do this in so many different prints and get a different look every time. A lot of fun possibilities here. I want to give a thank you to Lauren for allowing us to use her pattern in this sewing marathon. I also want to give a thank you to Lauren for starting the sewing marathons completely. Thank you to Brittany from the Emporium for giving her the idea. Thank you for everyone for participating in this event, all the different sewists, and thank you for everyone who watched this video. These videos would not be happening if it weren't for people watching and enjoying them. It wouldn't be for designer. It wouldn't be happening if designers weren't allowing us to film these tutorials. If you're someone who wants to start making YouTube videos, start making them. Join us for these sewing marathons. If you're a designer who makes your own patterns, reach out to us about maybe us doing one of your patterns for a sewing marathon. And I hope you guys are able to have some fun today in your sewing room, creating and making something beautiful, and that you're able to watch all the other people that are making their tutorials today. Thanks so much. I love this sewing community, and I'm so grateful for all the support and all the kind words that you always give. So thanks for being wonderful, and I hope to see you soon in my next video.